Every country on Earth is in debt. The United States owes over 38 trillion. Europe owes around 14 trillion. Japan owes nearly 9 trillion. Even wealthy oil nations. Even countries that sell more than they buy. All of them owe money. But here's what doesn't make sense. If everyone owes money, who are they paying back? This is forgotten economy, where debt, power, and empires quietly intersect. Debt isn't what most people think. It's not just something you get into when things go wrong. It's the skeleton holding up the entire global system. Every war, every market boom, every financial collapse, all of it rests on borrowed money. And if you start asking who everyone owes, you find something odd. The world doesn't really owe anyone outside itself. It owes itself. But the money doesn't flow back to the same people who pay. Right now, the world owes over 315 trillion. That's nearly 3 times everything the entire planet makes in a year. To understand how we got here, you have to go back to when this all started. Before banks had computers or credit cards existed, the idea of a country owing money was invented, not by economists, by a king who ran out of gold. It was 1694. England was at war with France. The problem was simple. Wars cost money. England didn't have enough. So the king went to merchants and made them an offer. Lend me money now, and I'll pay you interest every year, forever. Backed by taxes I'll collect in the future. The merchants agreed, and to manage this new deal, they created something called the Bank of England. It was radical. For the first time, a government could spend money it hadn't earned yet. And the lenders got something valuable in return, a promise, one they could trade with other people like property. That promise was called a government bond, and it became the foundation of modern money. France saw this and copied it. The Netherlands improved it. When America fought for independence, it used the same system to pay for the revolution. Debt stopped being a sign of weakness. It became a sign of trust. If people would lend to you, it meant they believed in your future. And that belief gave you power. Empires used to conquer land to take its gold. Now they just issued bonds and collected interest instead. The battlefield moved to spreadsheets. 300 years later, debt is how the world runs. The United States owes 38 trillion. Japan owes over 9 trillion. And every 100 days, the total grows by another trillion. Every country owes, every bank lends. And every person, without realizing it, is part of both sides. Through taxes, through retirement savings, through the money sitting in a bank account. So who's actually holding all this debt? Let's start with the United States, because its debt isn't just large. It's woven into the whole world. Out of that $38 trillion, about half is owed to investors. Not to other parts of the government, but to actual people and institutions. And most of those investors? About 2/3, they're American. Banks, retirement funds, insurance companies, even the Federal Reserve, which is the U.S. central bank. The other third, around 9 trillion, is held by foreign countries. Japan holds the most, about $1 trillion. China is second with around 800 billion. Then the UK, Luxembourg, Belgium. So yes, the US owes China money. But it's only about 2% of the total debt. Most of what America owes, it owes to Americans. Here's how it works. The government issues a bond. That's like an IOU. An American bank buys it. Later, the Federal Reserve might buy it back from the bank, creating new money to do it. Americans pay taxes. Some of that tax money goes to paying interest on the bonds. And that interest? It flows into American pension funds and retirement accounts. The money goes in a circle. The debt is real. But the person it's owed to is mostly just another part of the same system. And this circular pattern isn't just American. It's everywhere. Japan lends to the U.S. by buying American bonds. The U.S. lends to Europe through organizations like the IMF. Europe lends to poorer countries through the World Bank. And those poorer countries, they lend back to the rich ones by keeping their savings in Western bonds. It's like a game where everyone's passing money around the table. Except the money is really just promises. Every country holds someone else's IOU. Every IOU is backed by another IOU. Imagine a poker game where everyone borrowed their chips from the person sitting next to them. The game only works if no one tries to leave. But there's something even more powerful than governments in this system, the markets. Behind every government bond, there's a whole network. Hedge funds, pension systems, wealth funds, central banks managing trillions of dollars. These institutions decide which countries can borrow easily and which ones have to pay more. When they stop trusting a country, the currency collapses, governments fall, entire economies get reorganized overnight. Elections decide who leads, but markets decide who survives. And at the very center of this system sits the central bank. Central banks don't just watch over debt, they create it. When the Federal Reserve buys government bonds, it doesn't use money it already has. It creates new money right there. One organization's debt becomes another's asset. Every dollar that exists started as debt somewhere. There's no such thing as money without debt behind it. Every bill, every coin, every number in your bank account, it all represents a promise someone made. For decades, this whole system has kept going on one thing: belief. As long as investors believe governments will keep paying interest, even if they never pay back the original loan, everything keeps moving. But what happens when that belief cracks? We've seen it. In 2010, Greece couldn't pay its debts. Investors panicked. The cost of borrowing shot up. The European Central Bank and the IMF stepped in to help. But the help came with conditions. Cut spending, raise taxes, millions lost jobs. An entire generation paid the price just to keep the system running. Argentina has collapsed multiple times. Sri Lanka ran out of money to buy fuel, and the government fell apart. When the system breaks, suddenly you can see who the creditors really are. The IMF, the credit rating agencies. Anonymous investors who can strangle entire nations. But even after a collapse, the pattern repeats. New loans replace old ones, debts get restructured. The machine restarts under a new name. Because in the modern world, debt isn't designed to be paid off. It's designed to keep rolling forward. Governments today don't actually plan to pay back what they owe. Not now, not ever. That's not a conspiracy. It's just how the system works. When you or I borrow money, we're expected to pay it back eventually. But governments are different. They treat debt like a subscription that never ends. They issue new bonds to pay off old ones. Economists call this refinancing. The interest is the real cost. It's like rent, the price of keeping everything stable. And the global economy now depends on that rent being paid forever. It's like a shark. If it stops swimming, it dies. The system today doesn't run on repayment. It runs on confidence. The United States will never pay off $38 trillion. It will just keep refinancing it forever. Japan has been doing this for decades. Its debt is now over. 250% of everything the country makes in a year. And yet, people still lend to Japan at almost no interest. Investors aren't waiting to get their money back. They're waiting to lend again. Why? Because government debt is seen as the safest thing in the world. A U.S. Treasury bond isn't considered risky. It's considered solid. The bedrock. Pension funds hold it. Banks use it as proof they're stable. Central banks treat it like cash. The system actually depends on governments never paying off their debt. Because if they did, the safest financial tool in the world would disappear. Imagine if the U.S. somehow paid off every dollar it owes. Banks everywhere would lose their most trusted asset. The supply of dollars would shrink dramatically. Prices would collapse. The economy would break. Paying off the debt would destroy the thing that makes the economy work. So governments do the opposite. They keep borrowing, not recklessly, but steadily. Debt becomes like a heartbeat. It pulses through every pension fund, every mortgage, every market. That's why when politicians talk about paying down the national debt, they're not describing something real. The goal isn't to eliminate it. The goal is to keep it believable, to keep it under control. to make sure people never stop trusting it. Because once that trust disappears, the numbers don't matter anymore. Confidence collapses, interest rates explode, and an economy built entirely on promises stops working. That's the hidden truth about national debt. It was never meant to be repaid. It was meant to be believed in. It's a loop of trust, and as long as the trust holds, the debt can grow forever. But trust doesn't reach everyone the same way. When people say we owe the money to ourselves, that's only partly true. The interest payments don't spread evenly across society. They flow upward, from workers and taxpayers to the institutions and investors who own the debt. Debt isn't just countries owing other countries. It's one group of people owing another group inside the same system. That's why inequality and debt grow together. The system rewards people who own the debt. It burdens the people who just pay it. If that sounds familiar, it's because it's the same pattern everywhere, in households, in nations, across the whole planet. Creditors aren't villains. Debtors aren't victims. They're just two sides of the same machine. The real problem comes when the machine runs out of fuel, when new borrowing can't keep up with old promises. That's when the question stops being abstract. Who's the creditor? At the top of this pyramid, there's no single face to point at. It's not China. It's not Wall Street. It's not the IMF. It's all of them, and it's us. The modern system has turned debt into money itself. Governments create it. Banks multiply it. Investors trade it. And ordinary people live inside it without realizing. The line between who owes and who's owed has disappeared. Debt used to mean you were trapped. Now it just means the system is balanced. But if that balance tips, if confidence breaks, the illusion falls apart. And we'll see debt for what it really is, a promise nobody was planning to keep.